Hello, my name is Christopher Howard. I am 32 years old and I have lived in the same small town my entire life. It is the kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business, where the mailman stops to chat about the weather, and where the biggest excitement usually comes from the annual corn festival. But somehow, sitting on that weathered porch swing with Olivia Jimenez on a warm evening in late summer, I felt like we were the only two people in the entire world. The evening had settled into that perfect kind of quiet where you can hear your own heartbeat mixing with the gentle creak of the swing's chains. And then she said something that made everything else fade away completely. It got quiet the moment you showed up. Those words hung in the air between us like a confession, delicate and powerful. And I knew right then that everything was about to change in ways I could not even begin to imagine. But let me back up and tell you how we got there, because the story does not really start on that porch swing, surrounded by the scent of jasmine and the soft glow of streetlights. It starts when I was supposed to be fixing Mrs. Patterson's back steps and instead found myself standing in the middle of the town square watching a woman I had never seen before struggle with a broken easel and a canvas that kept threatening to blow away in the persistent wind that always seemed to pick up around 10 in the morning. She had dark hair that caught the morning light like spun silk, and she was wearing paint-stained jeans that had clearly seen many artistic battles and a white button-down shirt that had definitely seen better days. What struck me most was not how pretty she was, though she undeniably was, with those expressive features and the way she moved with unconscious grace, even while fighting with stubborn equipment. No, what caught my attention was how absolutely determined she looked. The wind kept knocking over her easel with what seemed like personal vindictiveness, and most people would have given up after the third or fourth attempt and gone home to try again on a calmer day. Not her. She kept setting it back up with increasing resolve, adjusting the legs with the patience of someone accustomed to solving problems, trying different angles like she was negotiating with the weather itself and refusing to accept defeat. I was supposed to mind my own business. That is what you do in a small town. When you see someone struggling with something that is clearly none of your concern, you nod politely. Maybe offer a sympathetic smile and keep walking toward whatever task is waiting for you. But something about the way she refused to give up, the set of her shoulders and the determined line of her mouth made me walk over instead of continuing on my way to Mrs. Patterson's house. Need a hand with it? I asked, and she looked up at me with these incredible green eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. My work clothes, my tool belt, my probably obvious curiosity about what she was doing. I am trying to capture the morning light on the courthouse, she said, gesturing toward the old brick building that dominated one side of the square with its clock tower and weathered steps. But apparently the wind has other plans for my artistic endeavors. I looked at her easel, then at the courthouse, then back at her, considering the angles and the way the wind was moving through the square. You know, if you move about 10 feet that way behind those benches, the courthouse steps will block most of the wind. The light might be a little different, but you will actually be able to paint without wrestling with your equipment. She tilted her head, considering this suggestion with the serious attention of someone who took her work seriously, then smiled. It was the kind of smile that starts small and uncertain and then spreads across someone's entire face like sunrise. You know about light? I know about wind, I said, hefting my tool bag, and I know about structures and how they affect airflow. The light part you will have to figure out yourself. That is how I met Olivia Jimenez. She was new in town, had moved here from Chicago just 5 days earlier to take care of her grandmother, and she was trying to make a living as a freelance graphic designer while pursuing her real passion, which was painting landscapes and portraits that captured something essential about the places and people she encountered. She had been in town for exactly 5 days, and I was the first person who had offered to help her with anything beyond basic politeness. Before we see how this ends, tell us where you are watching from and hype this video in the comments. I would love to know if anyone else has ever had one of those moments where a simple conversation changes everything, where helping a stranger with something small opens up possibilities you never saw coming. After I helped her move the easel to a more sheltered spot, I should have said goodbye and gone to fix Mrs. Patterson's steps, which were genuinely becoming a safety hazard. Instead, I found myself lingering, watching her set up her palette with practiced efficiency, mixing colors with the focused attention of someone who understood exactly what she was looking for. "Would you like to grab coffee when you are done painting?" I heard myself ask, surprising us both. "I mean, if you want, there is a good place just across the square." She paused in her color mixing and looked at me with those green eyes, and I could practically see her weighing the offer, considering this stranger who had helped her with her easel and was now asking her to coffee. "Yes," she said finally, "I would like that. Give me about an hour." That is how I ended up spending my lunch break at Murphy's Diner instead of eating the sandwich I had packed. Learning that Olivia had grown up in Chicago in a neighborhood where you could walk to everything you needed, that she painted because it was the only time her mind got completely quiet and focused, and that she was genuinely scared she had made a mistake moving here because everyone seemed to already have their established groups and social circles, and she could not figure out how to fit into the existing social fabric of the town. "It is not that people are not friendly," she said, stirring sugar into her coffee with a thoughtful expression. "They are. Everyone has been perfectly nice, but there is a difference between friendly and welcoming. Between politeness and actual acceptance." I knew exactly what she meant. I had grown up here, so I was part of the established order by birthright, but I had seen how the town could be with outsiders over the years. Not hostile or unwelcoming. Exactly. Just closed in that way. Small communities can be like a book that has been sitting on the shelf so long that the pages have stuck together and it takes real effort to open it up again. "Give it time," I told her, meaning it. Small towns move slow, but once you are in, you are really in. It just takes patience. "How long did it take you to feel like you belonged here?" she asked with a dry smile. "About 32 years, I said, and she laughed. A genuine surprise sound that made Murphy look over from behind the counter with interest. That laugh was something else entirely. It was genuine and surprise, like she had not expected to find anything funny about her situation, like she had been carrying the weight of uncertainty. And my small joke had lifted it just a little. It made me want to keep making her laugh, which was a dangerous thought for someone who had been perfectly content living the quiet, uncomplicated life without romantic entanglements. We started meeting for coffee regularly after that first afternoon. Not dates exactly, just two people who enjoyed talking to each other and found that an hour spent in conversation made both of our days better. She would tell me about her painting projects and her freelance clients, the challenges of working remotely and trying to build a creative career in a new place. I would tell her about whatever construction job I was working on, the satisfaction of building things that would last, the personalities of the various homeowners I worked for. It sounds mundane when I put it like that, but somehow our conversations never felt mundane. She had a way of asking questions that made me think about things I had never considered before, that made familiar topics feel fresh and interesting, like when she asked me why I had become a carpenter in the first place. Most people assume it is because I'm good with my hands, which is true, or because it pays well in a small town, which is also true. But Olivia asked if I liked the work itself, if it satisfied something in me beyond just practical considerations. I found myself telling her about how deeply satisfying it is to take raw materials, lumber and nails, and hardware, and turn them into something useful, something that will last for decades. How there is a kind of honesty in construction work that you do not find in a lot of other professions. You cannot fake your way through building a house or fixing a roof. Either the foundation is solid or it is not. Either the measurements are right or they are wrong. Either the structure will hold or it will not. "That is beautiful," she said. And I realized no one had ever called my work beautiful before. Useful, yes. Well done, certainly. But beautiful, that was a new way of thinking about it. The weeks passed with the steady rhythm of late summer, and Olivia gradually became part of the town's daily rhythm. She joined the library's book club, where Mrs. Chen immediately put her in charge of selecting contemporary fiction. She started volunteering at the community center, helping with their newsletter design, and creating flyers for local events. She discovered that Mr. Garcia, who ran the hardware store, had been a painter himself in his younger days, and they began having long conversations about technique and inspiration. Slowly, carefully, people began to warm up to her, to include her in the casual invitations and spontaneous gatherings that make up the social fabric of a small community. I watched it happen with a mixture of pride and something that might have been jealousy, though I tried not to examine that feeling too closely. Pride because I had been right that she would find her place here eventually, that her genuine warmth and artistic talent would win people over. Jealousy because as she made other friends and found other people to talk to, I worried that our coffee meetings might become less important to her, less essential to her daily routine. But they did not. If anything, they became more important to both of us, an anchor point in days that were increasingly busy and social. We started taking walks around town after our coffee, and she would point out things she wanted to paint, details I had walked past 1,000 times without really seeing. The way the afternoon light hit the old water tower, creating shadows that changed the entire character of the structure. The intricate pattern of shadows cast by the elm trees on Main Street, how they shifted throughout the day like a natural sundial. The weathered, paint-stained hands of old Mr. Garcia as he worked in his garden behind the hardware store. Hands that told the story of decades of honest work. "You see everything," I told her one afternoon as we walked past the elementary school, where she had stopped to watch kids playing on the playground, their voices carrying across the yard in a symphony of childhood joy. "I see what is interesting," she said, pulling out a small sketchbook to capture the way the light fell across the playground equipment. "And everything is interesting if you look at it right. Most people just do not take the time to really look." I started seeing the town differently through her eyes, noticing details that had been invisible to me despite 32 years of living here. Places I had walked past 1,000 times suddenly had character, had stories worth telling. The chip in the paint on the post office door that looked like a tiny map of some unknown country. The way Mrs. Henderson's orange tabby cat always sat in exactly the same spot on her front porch, like a furry sentinel keeping watch over the neighborhood. The sound of the train that passed through town every evening at exactly 6:15, its whistle carrying across the valley like a daily benediction. It was during one of these walks, as we meandered through the residential streets where I had grown up, that Olivia mentioned her grandmother's porch swing for the first time. Her grandmother had passed away the previous winter after a brief illness, and Olivia had inherited the house, which was the primary reason she had moved here in the first place. The swing had been her grandmother's favorite spot where she would sit every evening after dinner and watch the neighborhood, keeping track of who was coming and going, waving to neighbors, enjoying the simple pleasure of being part of a community. "I keep meaning to sit out there," Olivia said, her voice carrying a note of sadness I had not heard before. "But it feels too quiet, too empty, like I am intruding on her space, like I do not have the right to occupy the place where she spent so many peaceful evenings." "Maybe it is not empty," I said, thinking about the idea of spaces that hold memory, that carry the echo of the people who love them. "Maybe it is just waiting." She looked at me curiously, slowing her pace. "Waiting for what?" "For someone to fill it with new memories, for someone to love it the way she did." That conversation stayed with me for days afterward, playing in my mind as I worked on various projects around town. There was something about the idea of that empty porch swing that made me think about all the spaces in our lives that are waiting to be filled. All the possibilities that exist in the gap between what was and what could be. All the conversations we have not had yet. All the connections we have not made. All the love stories that are waiting to begin. I started working on a project for Olivia without telling her about it, spending my evenings in my garage workshop instead of watching television or reading. Her grandmother's porch swing, according to Olivia's detailed description, was old and weathered, probably original to the house, and the chains were starting to rust in a way that could become dangerous. The wooden seat had been beautiful once, but was now gray and splintered from decades of weather and use. I could not do anything about the emptiness she felt, the weight of grief and memory that made the swing feel haunted, but I could make sure it was safe and comfortable and beautiful again. I bought new galvanized chains that would resist rust, sanded down the wooden seat with increasing grades of sandpaper until it was smooth as silk, and applied 3 careful coats of weather-resistant stain that brought out the natural grain of the wood. It took me 3 long evenings working by the light of my garage's overhead bulbs to get it exactly right. The result was a swing that looked both timeless and renewed, honoring the original while making it ready for new stories. The tricky part was installing it without Olivia knowing what I was up to. I waited until I saw her car leave for her weekly grocery trip to the supermarket on the edge of town, then drove over with my tools and the refurbished swing. It took me about an hour to carefully take down the old one, making sure not to damage the porch ceiling, and hang the new one, checking and double-checking that it was level and secure and safe. I was just finishing up, testing the swing one final time, and cleaning up my tools when I heard a car door slam in the driveway. Olivia was back early from her shopping trip, walking up the front path with 2 bags of groceries and a puzzled expression on her face as she took in the scene. Me on her porch, tools scattered around and obviously having been working on something. "Christopher, what are you doing here?" she asked, setting down her groceries on the porch steps. I gestured toward the swing, suddenly feeling uncertain about whether I had overstepped some boundary. Thought this might need some attention. The chains were getting pretty rusty. She set down her groceries and walked over to examine the swing more closely, running her hand along the smooth, newly stained wood, testing the strength of the new chains with a gentle pull. When she looked up at me, her eyes were bright with something that might have been tears. "You did not have to do this," she said, her voice soft with emotion. "I know," I said. "I wanted to. I thought maybe if it was beautiful again, it might not feel so empty." She sat down on the swing and pushed off gently with her feet, testing the motion, feeling the smooth way it moved on its new chains. "It is perfect. It is exactly like my grandmother's swing, but new, like it has been given another chance." "Same swing," I said, "just refreshed, ready for new memories." She patted the space beside her on the swing, and her smile was warm and inviting. "Sit with me. I would like to christen it properly." That is how we ended up spending the entire evening on that porch swing, talking about everything and nothing as the sun set and the streetlights came on one by one about her grandmother, who had been a teacher for 40 years and had known every kid in town who had made the best apple pie in the county and had never met a stray cat she would not feed. About my parents who had moved to Florida when they retired and kept sending me postcards of beaches and palm trees trying to convince me to visit a place where winter meant temperatures in the 70s, about the difference between being alone and being lonely, and how sometimes you do not realize you are lonely until you are not anymore. As the sun set and the streetlights came on, casting pools of warm light along the quiet street, the conversation naturally grew quieter, more thoughtful, more intimate. Olivia told me about her ex-boyfriend in Chicago, Marcus, who had been supportive of her art in theory, but had never actually looked at any of her paintings with real attention. Who talked about her little hobby in a way that made it clear he did not take her work seriously. About how she had gradually realized she was living her life for someone who did not really see her, who loved the idea of having an artistic girlfriend, but did not actually value what made her artistic. I told her about my ex-girlfriend Sarah, who had been smart and ambitious and absolutely convinced that anyone with real potential would want to move to the city where the opportunities were bigger and the world was wider. She had wanted me to move to Chicago with her when she got a job at a marketing firm, and she had never been able to understand why I would choose to stay in a small town where nothing ever happened and where I would never reach my full potential. "Do you ever regret it?" Olivia asked, her voice barely above a whisper in the gathering darkness. "Staying here when she left." I thought about it for a long moment, really considering the question. I used to think I might. There were nights when I would wonder if I was just being stubborn or scared or lacking in ambition. But sitting here now, I cannot imagine being anywhere else. This is where I belong. She smiled at that, and we fell into a comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the neighborhood settling in for the night. Dogs barking in the distance, the murmur of television sets through open windows, the soft sound of someone watering their garden with a hose. That is when she said it. The thing that had been echoing in my mind ever since. The words that changed everything. It got quiet the moment you showed up. I was not sure what she meant at first, though. Something in her tone told me it was important. "Quiet?" "In my head," she said, turning to face me on the swing, her expression serious and vulnerable. "I am always thinking about 10 different things at once. What I need to paint next, whether I am making enough money to sustain this lifestyle, if I made the right choice moving here, whether people actually like me or if they are just being polite because I am new, whether I am good enough, talented enough, whether I am wasting my time chasing something that will never pay off. But when you are around, all of that noise just stops. It gets quiet in this best possible way. I understood exactly what she meant because the same thing happened to me when I was with her. The constant background worry about whether I was wasting my life in this small town, whether I should be doing something more ambitious with my skills, whether I was going to end up like my Uncle Pete, who had lived alone in the same house for 30 years and talked to his dog more than he talked to people. All of that disappeared when Olivia was around, replaced by a sense of contentment and rightness that I had never experienced before. I know what you mean, I said, my voice rougher than I had intended. Do you? She asked, searching my face in the dim light from the street lamp. Yeah, I do. When I am with you, everything else just falls away. All the doubts and questions and worries. It is like everything makes sense in a way it never has before. We looked at each other for a long moment, and I realized that this was one of those pivotal moments that you recognize even as it is happening. The kind of moment where you can feel your life shifting direction like a river changing course after years of flowing in the same pattern. The air between us felt charged with possibility and fear and hope. Christopher, she said, and my name and her voice sounded different. More intentional, more important, like she was claiming it, making it hers. Yeah, I think I am falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between us, and I felt something in my chest that was part fear and part relief and part pure, overwhelming joy. Fear because love is always scary, especially when it is real and deep and has the power to change everything. Relief because I had been feeling the same way and had not known how to say it, had not been sure if what I was feeling was reciprocated. Joy because sometimes if you are very lucky, the person you are falling in love with is falling in love with you too. I think I am falling in love with you too, I said, the words coming out in a rush. She smiled then, that same smile I had first seen when she was struggling with her easel in the town square. But bigger now, more certain, more radiant. What do we do about that? I do not know, I admitted. I have never been in love in a small town before. Everyone is going to know our business before we do. There will be opinions and expectations and probably some well-meaning interference. She laughed, and the sound was like music in the quiet evening air. I have never been in love in a small town either. But I think maybe that is okay. Maybe it is nice to have people who care about whether things work out, who are invested in our happiness. Are you sure about this? I asked, needing to be certain about us, about staying here, about building something real. I am sure about you, she said without hesitation. I am sure about the way I feel when we are together. The rest we can figure out as we go. That night I walked home with a lightness in my step that I had not felt in years, maybe ever. The town looked different somehow, more alive, more full of possibility and promise. The same streets I had walked my entire life suddenly felt like they were leading somewhere new and wonderful. The familiar houses and landmarks seemed to glow with significance, as if they were all part of a story that was just beginning to unfold. Over the next few weeks, Olivia and I navigated the delicate transition from friends to something more, from casual coffee dates to the beginning of a real relationship. It was not always smooth sailing. There were moments of uncertainty, times when we both wondered if we were moving too fast or not fast enough, if we were reading the signals right, if we were building something that could last, or just enjoying a beautiful moment that would eventually fade. But there were also moments of perfect clarity, like the evening she invited me to see her paintings for the first time. It was a Tuesday night in early October, and she had been working on a new series all week, staying up late in her makeshift studio. Would you like to see what I have been working on? She asked after we had finished dinner at Murphy's. And I could hear both excitement and nervousness in her voice. She had converted her grandmother's spare bedroom into a studio, and it was filled with canvases in various stages of completion, easels holding works in progress, and the organized chaos that comes with serious creative work. The room smelled of paint and turpentine and possibility. There were landscapes of our town that I recognized but had never really seen before, captured through her artist's eye. The courthouse at different times of day in different seasons, showing how light and weather could transform the same building into something entirely different. The old bridge over Miller's Creek, painted during what must have been the golden hour just before sunset. The faces of people I had known my whole life captured in moments of thought or laughter or quiet concentration. Mr. Garcia tending his tomatoes, Mrs. Chen reading in the library, children playing in the park. These are incredible, I said, and I meant it with every fiber of my being. They were not just paintings of places and people I knew. They were paintings of the soul of the place, the essence of what made this town home, the beauty that existed in ordinary moments that most people walk past without noticing. "You really think so?" she asked, and I could hear the vulnerability in her voice. The way artists always sound when they are showing their work is someone whose opinion matters to them. "I think you see things the rest of us miss," I said, studying a painting of the town square during the farmer's market, full of life and color and human connection. "I think you see the beauty in ordinary moments, and you make other people see it too." She showed me a painting she had been working on of the town square, the same view she had been trying to capture that first morning when I met her. But this version was completely different from what I had expected. Instead of focusing on the courthouse or the architecture, she had painted the people. An old man feeding pigeons from a paper bag, his face gentle with concentration. A mother pushing a stroller while talking on her phone, multitasking with the grace that comes from practice. Two teenagers sharing a bag of chips on a bench, their heads bent together in the intimacy of young friendship. And in the corner of the painting, barely visible unless you were looking for it, was a man helping a woman with an easel. "Is that us?" I asked, my voice catching slightly. "That is the moment I knew I was going to love it here," she said softly. "Not just the town, but the life I could build here, the person I could become." I realized then that what I felt for Olivia was not just romantic love, though it was certainly that. It was also gratitude deep and abiding. She had helped me see my own life differently, helped me understand that the choice to stay in a small town was not a limitation or a failure of imagination, but a decision to invest deeply in one place, to know it completely, to be part of its ongoing story in a meaningful way. We started spending more time together after that evening, and as Olivia had predicted, the whole town knew we were a couple before we had even officially decided we were a couple ourselves. Mrs. Patterson asked me how my lady friend was doing when I came to finish her back steps. Murphy at the diner started automatically bringing 2 cups of coffee when I came in alone, assuming Olivia would be joining me. The librarian Mrs. Chen mentioned to Olivia that it was nice to see me smiling more, that I seemed lighter somehow, more present. "Does this bother you?" Olivia asked one evening as we walked past the hardware store, where Mr. Thompson waved at us through the window with a knowing grin and what looked suspiciously like a thumbs up. "What? The attention? The complete lack of privacy? The way everyone has opinions about our relationship? The way they are all watching to see how things develop between us?" I thought about it, considering how I might have felt about this level of scrutiny in the past. "It would have bothered me before," I said honestly, "but now it feels different. Like they are not just being nosy for the sake of gossip, like they actually want things to work out for us, like they are invested in our happiness." "That is exactly what I think too," she said, squeezing my hand. "It is like having a whole town of people rooting for you, and like we are part of some larger story that everyone wants to have a happy ending." And they were rooting for us in ways both obvious and subtle. I could see it in the way people smiled when they saw us together. Genuine smiles of approval and pleasure. In the way they asked about Olivia when she was not with me, not in a nosy way, but in the way you ask about someone you care about. In the way they had started including her in town traditions and events. Not as a newcomer who needed to be accommodated, but as someone who belonged. She was not an outsider anymore. She was part of the fabric of the place, woven into the community in a way that felt natural and right. And somehow our relationship had helped accelerate that process. The real test of our relationship came when Olivia received an unexpected offer to us to do freelance work for a prestigious marketing agency in Chicago. It was a significant project, potentially very lucrative, and it would mean spending at least 3 months in the city working on site with their creative team. She told me about it on a Thursday evening as we sat on her porch swing, watching the leaves change color on the massive maple tree in her front yard, the reds and golds creating a natural masterpiece that shifted with every breeze. "It is a good opportunity," she said, but her voice was flat, uncertain, lacking the excitement you would expect from someone who had just received a career-advancing offer. But I prompted, sensing there was more to the story. But I do not want to leave. I do not want to leave you. And I do not want to leave here. I have finally found a place where I belong, where I can be myself completely. I am scared that if I go back to the city, even temporarily, I will lose what I have built here. Maybe you do not have to choose, I patted saying, though my heart was racing with the fear of losing her. Maybe you can take the job and come back. Maybe this could be a way to have both things, the career opportunity and the life you have built here. 3 months is a long time, she said, her voice small. And what if I get there and realize I miss the city more than I thought I would? What if this whole small town thing was just a phase, a reaction to my breakup and my grandmother's death? What if I am not really cut out for this kind of life? I felt a familiar tightness in my chest, the same feeling I had had when Sarah left for the city, the fear of being abandoned for bigger and better things. But this time it was different. This time I trusted the person I was potentially losing. And I trusted what we had built together. More importantly, I trusted that love meant supporting someone's dreams, even when those dreams scared you. Then you will figure it out, I said, meaning it. And whatever you decide, I will support it. I will not pretend it will not be hard, but I will not try to hold you back either. She looked at me with surprise, as if she had expected a different reaction. You are not going to try to talk me out of it. You are not going to give me reasons why I should stay. Do you want me to? Part of me does, she said honestly. Part of me wants you to give me a reason to stay that is bigger than my own doubts. Something that makes the decision easy. The only reason to stay that matters is if you want to stay, I said, taking her hand. I cannot be your reason for making life decisions. I can only be part of your reason, part of what makes you happy, but the choice has to be yours. She was quiet for a long time, pushing the swing back and forth with her feet, thinking the silence was not uncomfortable, but it was charged with the weight of a decision that would affect both of our futures. Finally, she said, what if I take the job but keep the house? What if I tried doing both for a while and see how it feels? What does your gut tell you? I asked, echoing a question she had asked me weeks earlier. My gut tells me that home is not a place you find once and stick with forever out of fear or habit. Home is a place you choose again and again because it is where you want to build your life. And I want to build my life here with you. But I also want to take this job because it is part of building the kind of life I want. I want to be someone who takes opportunities, not someone who is afraid of them. So that is what she did. Olivia took the job in Chicago, but kept her grandmother's house, kept her place in our community. She worked in the city for 3 months, coming back every few weekends when she could manage it. And we talked on the phone every single night, sometimes for hours. It was not easy. The distance, the uncertainty, the way our daily rhythms were disrupted. But it was not as hard as I had expected either. The distance made me realize how solid what we had was, how much it could withstand without breaking. When she came back for good, she brought with her not just the money from the Chicago job and some valuable professional connections, but also a new confidence in her choices. She had proven to herself that she could succeed in the city if she wanted to, that she had the skills and talent to make it in a competitive environment. That knowledge made her decision to stay in our small town feel like a choice made from strength rather than fear. Or from abundance rather than limitation. I missed everything, she told me on her first night back as we sat on the porch swing, despite the January cold, bundled up in blankets and drinking hot chocolate from a thermos. I miss the way people say hello when they pass you on the street. I missed knowing the names of the cashiers at the grocery store and having them ask about my day. I missed being able to walk everywhere I need to go. I missed the quiet, the way you can actually hear yourself think. But mostly I missed you. I missed you too, I said, pulling her closer under the blanket. But I am proud of you for taking the job, for proving to yourself what you are capable of. Are you really? Yeah. You did not let fear make your decisions for you. You did something that scared you because it was the right thing to do, because it would help you grow. That takes real courage. She leaned against me on the swing, and I put my arm around her, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. I learned something important in Chicago, she said. What is that? I learned that I can be happy in a lot of different places with different kinds of work and different daily routines. But I can only be truly at home in one place. And this is home. Spring came early that year, arriving in March with unusually warm weather and an explosion of wildflowers in the fields surrounding town. With it came new projects and opportunities for both of us. Olivia started teaching art classes at the community center, something that had begun as a casual suggestion from Mrs. Chen and had grown into a formal program with a waiting list. I began work on the biggest construction job of my career, renovating the old Paramount Theater downtown that had been closed for nearly 15 years. The town council had finally approved the project after years of debate and fundraising, and they had chosen my company to do the restoration work. "This is huge for you," Olivia said when I told her about it. We were having dinner at Murphy's, celebrating both my new project and her first art class, which had been so popular that she had had to add a second session to accommodate everyone who wanted to participate. "It is the kind of job that could change everything," I said, still hardly believing it was real. "If I do it right, I could expand the business, maybe hire a couple of employees, take on bigger projects. It could put us on the map as a restoration company." "And if you do not do it right," she asked, though her tone was teasing rather than worried, "then I will have screwed up the most visible project in town and probably will not get another big job for years," I said. No pressure at all. She reached across the table and took my hand, her fingers warm and reassuring. "You will do it right. You always do. You have this way of approaching problems methodically, of seeing solutions that other people miss." Her confidence in me was both comforting and terrifying. I had never taken on anything this big or this important before. And there were moments when I wondered if I was in over my head, if I had bitten off more than I could chew. But every evening when I came home covered in dust and plaster and exhausted from wrestling with 100-year-old wiring and structural issues, Olivia would listen to me talk through the day's challenges and successes. Somehow her belief in me made me believe in myself, gave me the confidence to tackle problems that would have seemed impossible a few months earlier. The theater project took 8 long months to complete. There were setbacks that kept me awake at night, discovering that the foundation needed more work than we had anticipated, finding asbestos in the insulation that required expensive professional removal, dealing with supply chain issues that delayed crucial materials for weeks. But there were also moments when everything came together better than I had hoped, when we uncovered original murals hidden under decades of paint, when the restored marquee lit up for the first time in 15 years, when the new sound system made the space come alive with possibility. Olivia documented the progress in a series of paintings that she displayed in the library, capturing not just the physical transformation of the building, but the way the whole town seemed to come alive with anticipation as the renovation neared completion. Her paintings showed workers carefully restoring decorative plasterwork, families walking by to check on the progress, children pressing their faces against the windows to see inside. She captured the essence of a community coming together around a shared dream. The night before the theater's grand reopening, Olivia and I walked through the finished building together, just the two of us in the space that had consumed so much of my energy and attention for the better part of a year. The seats were installed in perfect rows. The stage was set for the next day's performances. The lobby was ready for crowds of people who would soon fill it with laughter and conversation. It looked exactly like what I had envisioned when I first saw the architectural plans, but better because it was real, because it was finished, because it would soon be alive with the community it was built to serve. "I am so proud of you," Olivia said as we stood in the middle of the empty theater, her voice echoing slightly in the space. "We did this together," I said, meaning it. "Your painting, your documentation of the process, the way you helped people stay excited about the project, even when it was just a construction mess, that was crucial. You helped them see the vision." "I just painted what I saw," she said. "You are the one who made it happen, who solved every problem and overcame every obstacle." The grand reopening was everything the town had hoped for and more. The local high school performed a concert that filled the space with music for the first time in decades. The drama club did scenes from classic plays on the restored stage. The mayor gave a speech about the importance of preserving our town's history while embracing its future, about the way this theater would serve as a gathering place for generations to come. But for me, the best part was watching Olivia in the audience, seeing how proud she was, how much she had become part of this community's story, how her presence had enriched not just my life, but the life of the entire town. After the performance, we walked home under a sky full of stars, and I realized that this was what happiness looked like. Not a constant state of excitement or achievement, but a deep sense of contentment with the life you have chosen and the person you have chosen to share it with. The satisfaction of work well done, of being part of something bigger than yourself, of contributing to the place you call home. That summer, Olivia's art started getting attention from beyond our small town. Recognition that both thrilled and worried her. A gallery in the state capitol wanted her to show her paintings of small town life, drawn by the way she captured the essence of rural American communities. A magazine focused on contemporary art asked to feature her work in an article about artists who find inspiration in unexpected places, who create beauty from the ordinary moments that most people overlook. Suddenly, people from the city were driving out to our town to see the places she had painted, to experience firsthand what she had captured on canvas. "It is weird," she said one evening, as we watched a couple from the city take photos of the courthouse, clearly trying to match their shots to one of her paintings. "I moved here to get away from all that attention and competition, and now the attention is following me here. How do you feel about it?" I asked, genuinely curious about her perspective on this unexpected success. "Proud," she said after thinking about it for a moment, "and a little overwhelmed and worried that success might change things in ways I do not want them to change." "What kind of things?" "This," she said, gesturing to the porch swing where we were sitting, to the quiet evening, the routine we had established. Us. The quiet life we have built together. What if galleries start expecting me to produce a certain kind of work on a certain schedule? What if I start painting what sells instead of what I see? What if success makes me lose touch with the things that make the work authentic in the first place? I understood her concern completely. Success has a way of complicating things, even when it is the kind of success you have always wanted. It brings opportunities, but it also brings pressure and expectations and the temptation to chase external validation rather than internal satisfaction. "What does your gut tell you?" I asked, echoing the question I had asked her about the Chicago job. "My gut tells me that the work is good because it comes from a real place, from genuine observation and honest emotion. As long as I stay connected to that real place, as long as I keep painting what moves me rather than what I think will sell, the work will stay honest." "And this is your real place?" She looked around at the neighborhood we had both come to love, at the house where her grandmother had lived for 50 years, at the town that had gradually opened its arms to embrace her and make her part of its ongoing story. "This is my real place," she said with certainty, "with you, with this community, with this life we are building together." That night, as we sat on the porch swing talking about the future and the opportunities that were opening up for her, I realized that I wanted to ask Olivia to marry me. Not because I was worried about losing her to success or because I thought we needed to make things official to prove our commitment. I wanted to marry her because I could not imagine building a life with anyone else. And I wanted to make that commitment formally, publicly, in front of all the people who had been rooting for us from the beginning. I started planning the proposal, which in a small town meant that half the community was involved, whether I wanted them to be or not. Mrs. Patterson offered her prize-winning rose garden for the occasion, suggesting that romance required the proper floral setting. Murphy suggested I pop the question at the diner where we had had our first official date, offering to close the place down for a private dinner. The jeweler, who was also the mayor's brother, promised to keep the ring selection secret, but somehow the whole town seemed to know I was shopping for engagement rings. Judging by the knowing smiles and encouraging comments I started getting everywhere I went. In the end, I decided that the proposal should happen where our love story had really begun, on the porch swing, where we had first admitted our feelings for each other. I spent a week refinishing the swing again, making it even more beautiful than it had been. And I arranged with Olivia's neighbor to have flowers planted in the garden, where she would be able to see them from the swing. I wanted everything to be perfect, to reflect the care and attention that our relationship deserved. The evening I planned to propose, Olivia came home from teaching her art class to find candles lit on the porch and me waiting on the swing, nervous as I had ever been in my life, the ring box feeling impossibly heavy in my pocket. "What is all this?" she asked, but she was smiling, and I could tell she suspected something was happening. "Sit with me," I said, patting the space beside me on the swing, my voice rougher than I had intended. She sat down and we swayed gently back and forth for a moment. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange that would have made a beautiful painting, the kind of natural masterpiece that had first drawn her to this place. "Olivia," I said, turning to face her on the swing, my heart pounding so hard I was sure she could hear it. "Christopher," she said, and I could hear laughter in her voice. The kind of joy that comes from recognizing a moment you will remember forever. "I love you," I said, the words coming from the deepest part of my heart. "I love the way you see beauty in ordinary things. I love the way you made this town your home and made me see it differently, too. I love the way you take chances and follow your dreams, but always come back to what matters most. I love your laugh and your questions and the way you make everything more interesting just by being part of it." "I love you too," she said, tears starting to shine in her eyes. "I want to build a life with you," I continued, getting down on one knee in front of the swing. "I want to grow old with you on this porch swing. I want to support your art and celebrate your success and be there for whatever challenges come our way. I want to be your partner in all of it." I pulled out the ring. I had chosen a simple solitaire that caught the last light of the sunset and held it up to her. "Will you marry me?" I asked. She was crying now, but she was also smiling. And she said yes before I had even finished asking the question, launching herself into my arms with such enthusiasm that we nearly toppled off the porch. We got married the following spring in the town square where we had first met, surrounded by all the places and people that had become part of our story. It was Olivia's idea to have the ceremony there, and it felt perfect, a public celebration of a love that had grown in full view of the community that had embraced it. The whole town came, of course, along with Olivia's family, who drove in from Chicago, and my parents, who flew back from Florida, their faces glowing with happiness at seeing their son so obviously completely in love. But what made the wedding special was not the number of people there or the beauty of the setting, though both were wonderful. It was the feeling that we were celebrating not just our love for each other, but our love for the community that had brought us together, that had supported us and rooted for us and made us part of something larger than ourselves. Olivia wore a simple white dress that she had found in a vintage shop in the city, and she carried a bouquet of wildflowers that she had picked from the field behind her grandmother's house. I wore the best suit I owned and tried not to cry when she walked down the makeshift aisle that the town had created by lining up chairs in the square. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the marriage, Murphy from the diner shouted, "Are you kidding? We have been waiting for this for 2 years." And everyone laughed, the sound carrying across the square like a blessing. Our first dance was to a song played by the high school jazz band right there in the square, with the courthouse and the elm trees and all the places Olivia had painted as our backdrop. It felt perfect, like we were dancing in the middle of our own love story, surrounded by all the people and places that had made it possible. For our honeymoon, we drove to the coast and spent a week in a small beach town that reminded us both of home. The same kind of close-knit community, the same sense of people caring about each other. Olivia painted seascapes that captured the endless horizon and the way light played on water. And I helped a local carpenter repair storm damage to a fishing pier. It was exactly the kind of honeymoon that suited us, combining relaxation with purpose, beauty with usefulness, new experiences with the familiar comfort of being helpful. When we came back, we moved into Olivia's grandmother's house together officially. I'd been spending most of my time there anyway, but making it official felt significant, like we were claiming our place in the ongoing story of the house and the neighborhood. We painted the bedroom a warm yellow that caught the morning light and turned the basement into a proper workshop for me, and expanded the studio space for Olivia so she could take on larger canvases. We planted a vegetable garden and adopted a dog from the shelter, a golden retriever mix named Murphy after our favorite diner owner, who had somehow become the unofficial mascot of our relationship. Life settled into a rhythm that felt both comfortable and exciting. I continued working on construction projects around town, and my business grew steadily as word spread about the theater renovation. Olivia's art career flourished, but she stayed true to her commitment to paint what she saw, rather than what she thought would sell. She had gallery shows in the city, but she always came home to our small town, to the porch swing where we had fallen in love, to the life we were building together one day at a time. We talked about having children, and we talked about traveling to places we had never seen, and we talked about all the dreams we wanted to pursue together. But mostly we just lived our lives day by day, finding joy in the ordinary moments that Olivia had taught me to see as extraordinary. The way morning light fell across our kitchen table, the sound of neighbors calling greetings to each other, the satisfaction of work well done and love freely given. Now, as I finish telling you this story, Olivia and I have been married for 3 years. We are sitting on the same porch swing where she first told me it got quiet when I showed up, where I proposed to her on an evening filled with candlelight and possibility, where we have had countless conversations about everything and nothing. The swing has been refinished twice more since then, not because it needed it, but because I like taking care of the things that matter, because maintaining beauty is its own form of love. Olivia is pregnant now, due in the fall, and we are both excited and terrified about becoming parents. We have been talking about how to raise a child in a small town, about the advantages of growing up where everyone knows your name, and the disadvantage of never being able to escape your childhood mistakes. We want our child to know the security of belonging somewhere, but we also want them to know that the world is big and full of possibilities. That home is a choice you make rather than a limitation you accept. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I had not stopped to help you with that easel? I asked Olivia the other night, as we sat watching the sunset over the neighborhood where our child will grow up. Never, she said without hesitation, her hand resting on her growing belly, because you are the kind of person who stops to help, and I am the kind of person who keeps trying even when the wind is working against me. We would have found each other somehow in some other way because we were meant to find each other. I think she is right. Some connections are inevitable, written into the fabric of who we are and what we need from life. But I am still grateful for that windy Tuesday morning, for the broken easel and the stubborn artist, and the moment when I decided to walk over instead of walking away. I am grateful for all the small choices that led us to each other and to this life we built together. The town has changed since Olivia and I got together, grown and evolved in ways that feel natural rather than forced. The theater renovation was so successful that other businesses have started investing in downtown improvements. Young families are moving here, drawn by the same things that drew Olivia, the sense of community and belonging that has become harder to find in bigger places. Olivia's art classes have turned into a full program at the community center, and several of her students have started showing their own work in local venues. But the essential character of the place remains the same, the things that make it home. People still know each other's names and each other's business, still care about whether things work out for their neighbors. They still gather for town events and support local businesses and argue about municipal budgets at town meetings. They still wave when they pass each other on the street and stop to chat when they meet at the grocery store. And every evening, Olivia and I sit on our porch swing and watch the neighborhood come alive with the sounds of dinner time and homework and families settling in for the night. Sometimes we talk about the future, about our hopes for our child and our dreams for our careers. Sometimes we discuss practical things like whether we need to paint the house this year or what vegetables to plant in the spring garden. And sometimes we just sit quietly listening to the sounds of home, feeling grateful for the life we have chosen and the love we found. It is still quiet when you are here, Olivia told me recently, her voice soft with contentment, but it is a different kind of quiet now. It is not the quiet of being alone with my thoughts. It is the quiet of being completely content with where I am and who I am with. I know exactly what she means. The quiet she is talking about is not the absence of noise or activity. It is the presence of peace, the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you are exactly where you belong. It is what happens when you find your place in the world and the person you want to share it with. It is the sound of a life well lived, of choices made with intention and love, of two people who found each other and decided to build something beautiful together, one day at a time. As I look toward the future, I see more evenings on this porch swing, More conversations about dreams and fears and everyday miracles. I see our child learning to walk in this front yard, growing up surrounded by people who care about their well-being. I see Olivia's art continuing to evolve and my business continuing to grow, but always rooted in this place we have chosen to call home, always grounded in the values and relationships that make life meaningful. The quiet Olivia talks about is not something you find once and keep forever without effort. It is something you have to choose again and again by deciding what matters most and then building your life around those things. For us, what matters most is each other, this community, this commitment to seeing beauty in ordinary moments, in finding joy in the simple act of being present for the people and places we love. So that is our story. The love story that began with a broken easel and a helpful stranger in a town square on a windy Tuesday morning. It continues every day on a porch swing where two people who found each other decided to build a life together. One conversation at a time, one shared sunset at a time, one quiet evening at a time. It is not a dramatic story or an unusual one in the grand scheme of human experience, but it is ours, and that makes it perfect in ways that drama and uniqueness never could. The sun is setting now, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold that would make a beautiful painting. And Olivia is inside making dinner while I sit out here on the swing thinking about everything that brought us to this moment. In a few minutes, she will call me in to eat, and we will talk about our days and make plans for tomorrow. Later, we will come back out here and sit together in the gathering darkness, listening to the quiet that surrounds us when we are exactly where we belong. Feeling grateful for the love we found and the life we are building together, one ordinary, extraordinary day at a time. In the gentle sway of a porch swing under a fading summer sky, Christopher Howard's story whispers a heart-stirring truth. Home isn't a place you find. It's a quiet you create by choosing to see, to stay, to love the ordinary until it glows. When Olivia said, "It got quiet the moment you showed up," she wasn't just talking about silence. She meant the peace of being truly seen, the stillness that falls when someone's presence hushes the chaos of doubt and fear. From a wind-tossed easel in a sleepy town square to a love that turns strangers into soulmates, their journey aches with the beauty of small acts. A helping hand, a shared coffee, a refurbished swing carrying new memories. It teaches us that the most profound connections bloom not in grand gestures, but in the courage to notice, to linger, to build something lasting from the everyday. In a world screaming for more, louder, faster, Christopher and Olivia remind us to pause, to look closer, to choose the life and the love that makes your soul whisper, "I'm home." If this tale of quiet love and chosen belonging stirred something deep in you, share your own "It Got Quiet" moment in the comments. What person, place, or choice hushed your inner storm and felt like home? Let's fill this space with stories that prove beauty lives in the ordinary. And if you're yearning for more heartwarming journeys that celebrate the magic of showing up, hit subscribe and ring the bell. Join our family of dreamers where every swing creaks with possibility and every story feels like coming home.